French children eat oysters at age 4. American children refuse vegetables. The difference is one word French parents never say. While your child declares everything yucky before even tasting it, French kids eagerly explore new flavors. What do they know about developing adventurous eaters that we don't? Picture this. You've spent 20 minutes preparing a beautiful dinner. Roasted vegetables, perfectly seasoned protein, a colorful plate that looks like art. You set it down in front of your child with hope and excitement. Before the fork even touches the food, you hear it. Ew, that looks gross. I don't like it. Your heart sinks. Your patience thins. So you do what every exhausted parent does. You negotiate, bribe, or eventually make a separate meal. Sound familiar? But what if I told you that this entire battle could disappear with a single word change? That French families never experience food wars because they understand something fundamental about how children's brains categorize taste. You're not raising a picky eater, you're accidentally training one. In France, something extraordinary happens at dinner tables across the country. Children as young as 3 years old willingly try escargot, blue cheese, and bitter greens. Not because they're forced to, but because they're genuinely curious about food. They approach new flavors with the same enthusiasm American kids show for ice cream. This isn't genetics. French children aren't born with more adventurous palates. It's something far simpler and more powerful. It's language. There's a beautiful concept in French food culture called la dégustation, the art of tasting. But more than that, it's the language around tasting that creates food explorers instead of food fearers. French parents understand that every word you use around food either builds curiosity or destroys it. And there's one word that appears in American households thousands of times, but virtually never in French ones. A word so common you probably said it this week without thinking. A word that seems harmless but creates something called food neophobia, the fear of trying new foods. That word is yummy. When you describe food as yummy or yucky, you're not just giving an opinion, you're programming your child's brain to categorize food as inherently good or bad before they've even experienced it. You're teaching them that taste is a verdict, not a discovery. But French families do something completely different. They use descriptive language that invites exploration rather than judgment. Instead of "this is delicious," they might say "this has a smooth texture" or "this tastes bright and fresh." Instead of yucky, they say "this is quite strong" or "this has an interesting flavor." This subtle shift does something profound in a child's developing brain. It transforms food from something to judge into something to investigate. It creates what food scientists call flavor curiosity instead of flavor anxiety. Let me show you the exact method French families use through what I call la dégustation method. 4 steps that transform any child into a willing food explorer. Step 1. Replace judgment with description. 2 minutes. Starting today, eliminate judgment words from your food vocabulary. No more yummy, gross, delicious, or yucky. Instead, become a food scientist with your child. When you encounter any food, new or familiar, describe what you observe. This carrot is crunchy and sweet, or this cheese has a very strong smell, or these beans are small and green. Notice what happens when you shift from judgment to observation. Your child stops waiting for your verdict and starts making their own discoveries. They learn that food has characteristics to notice rather than labels to accept or reject. This language change activates the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for curiosity and investigation. When children hear descriptive language, their brains automatically start gathering sensory data rather than emotional reactions. French parents do this naturally. You'll never hear a French mother say, "Eat your yummy vegetables." Instead, she might say, "These carrots are very orange today," or "This soup smells like herbs from the garden." Step 2. Introduce the magic word. 1 minute. Here's the single word that changes everything. Interesting. When your child encounters a new food or makes a face at an unfamiliar taste, instead of "is it yummy" or "do you like it?" ask, "What do you find interesting about this?" This one-word transformation is revolutionary. Interesting implies that all foods have something worth noticing. It positions your child as a researcher rather than a judge. It removes the pressure to immediately like something and replaces it with curiosity about experiencing it. Watch what happens when you start using this word. Your child's defensive posture around new foods begins to soften. Instead of their first instinct being rejection, they start examining. They might notice it's bumpy, or it tastes like flowers, or it makes my tongue tingle. Each of these observations is intelligence in action. They're developing what French food culture calls le vocabulaire du goût, the vocabulary of taste. And this vocabulary becomes the foundation for food adventurousness. Step 3. Practice sensory investigation. 3 minutes. Before your child even tastes new food, invite them to investigate it with all their senses. What do you notice when you look at this? What happens when you smell it? How does it feel when you touch it? This isn't stalling or playing with food. This is what French families call l'approche sensorielle, sensory approach. When children engage multiple senses before tasting, they build familiarity and reduce anxiety around new foods. Research from the French National Institute for Agricultural Research shows that children who explore food through multiple senses before tasting are 60% more likely to accept new foods compared to children who are asked to taste immediately. You might spend 3 minutes just looking at, smelling, and touching a new fruit before anyone takes a bite. This investigation period allows their nervous system to adjust to novelty gradually, rather than being overwhelmed by immediate flavor impact. Step 4. Celebrate discovery, not preference. When your child tastes something new, resist asking, "Do you like it?" Instead, celebrate their discovery process. You discovered something new about how mushrooms taste, or you were brave enough to try something unfamiliar. This language shift is crucial. French parents understand that preference is personal and changeable, but discovery is always valuable. When you celebrate the act of exploring rather than the outcome of liking, you build intrinsic motivation for food adventurousness. Children who receive discovery-focused feedback develop what researchers call taste confidence, the belief that they can handle encountering new flavors, even if they don't immediately enjoy them. Here's what happens when you consistently use la dégustation method. Week 1. Your child stops the automatic yucky response. When you remove judgment language, they stop using it too. The immediate rejection of new foods begins to fade. Week 2. They start making observations about familiar foods. This apple is really crunchy today. Or the pasta feels slippery. They're developing sensory awareness. Week 3. They begin approaching new foods with curiosity rather than fear. Instead of refusing to try something, they might say, "Let me see what this is like." Month 2. Your child starts generating their own descriptive language. This tastes like sunshine, or this feels like little bumps on my tongue. They're building their personal taste vocabulary. Month 6. Your child willingly tries foods that would have triggered immediate rejection before, not because they like everything, but because they've learned that tasting is investigating, not committing. This transformation happens because you've rewired their relationship with food from emotional to exploratory. Instead of food being something to fear or judge, it becomes something to discover and understand. But here's the most beautiful change. Your own relationship with your child's eating relaxes completely. You stop being a short-order cook because they stop demanding only familiar foods. You stop negotiating because there's nothing to negotiate about. You're just exploring together. Mealtimes transform from battlefields into laboratories. Your child becomes a willing participant in food discovery rather than a resistant opponent in food wars. Now I know what you're thinking, but what if they really don't like something? What if it's actually too spicy, too bitter, or too unfamiliar for their palate? Shouldn't I protect them from unpleasant experiences? This concern reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about how children develop food preferences. French food culture understands something crucial. Temporary dislike isn't permanent rejection. When a French child says this is very strong about blue cheese, their parent doesn't interpret this as failure or immediately remove the food. They acknowledge, yes, blue cheese has a very strong flavor. Some people need to try it many times before they enjoy it. This response does several important things. It validates the child's experience without making it permanent. It normalizes the learning process around complex flavors, and it keeps the door open for future exploration. Research from pediatric nutrition studies shows that children may need 10-15 exposures to a new food before they begin to enjoy it. But American parents typically give up after 2 to 3 attempts because they interpret initial rejection as permanent dislike. French families understand that developing sophisticated palates is a gradual process, like learning to appreciate classical music or abstract art. You don't expect a 4-year-old to immediately love opera, but you might expose them to it repeatedly with the understanding that appreciation develops over time. The same principle applies to foods with complex flavors, bitter greens, strong cheeses, seafood, herbs. These foods require palate development, not immediate acceptance. Let me show you how this looks in practice. The broccoli scenario, American approach. This broccoli is so yummy. Just try one bite. You'll love it. French approach. This broccoli has little green trees on top. What do you notice about the smell? The new fruit introduction, American. This dragon fruit is delicious. It's like candy, French. This fruit has interesting pink skin with green spikes. What do you think the inside might look like? The strong cheese moment, American. Don't make that face. It's good for you. French. This cheese has a very strong flavor. Some people love strong flavors, and some people prefer mild ones. Each French response removes pressure while maintaining curiosity. They don't promise that the child will like something, but they invite investigation and normalize the range of possible responses. 6 months from now, here's what dinner looks like at your house. Your child examines their plate with genuine interest rather than immediate suspicion. They might pick up a piece of unfamiliar food and say, "This looks different. I wonder what it tastes like." They take experimental bites without drama, describing what they notice. When they encounter something too strong or unfamiliar, they don't melt down or demand substitutions. They might say, "This is very intense," and set it aside, but they're proud of themselves for trying something new. Most remarkably, they start requesting to try foods they see others eating. "Can I taste what you're having?" becomes a regular question instead of a miracle occurrence. This isn't about raising children who eat everything. It's about raising children who approach food with confidence rather than fear, curiosity rather than suspicion. French adults have among the most sophisticated palates in the world, but this doesn't happen by accident. It happens because they learn from early childhood that food is worthy of investigation, that taste preferences develop over time, and that being a food explorer is more interesting than being a food avoider. Your child already has this capacity. They're born with curiosity about sensory experiences. The question is whether your language around food nurtures that curiosity or shuts it down. So, starting with your very next meal, try the French approach. Eliminate judgment words. Describe what you observe. Ask what they find interesting. Celebrate their discoveries rather than their preferences. Watch what happens when you position yourself and your child as food scientists rather than food judges. Notice how their defensive posture around eating begins to relax when there's nothing to defend against, only things to explore. Try it once. The next time you put something new in front of your child, instead of "this is yummy," you'll love it. Try "this has an interesting color and texture. What do you notice about it?" Then listen. Really listen to what they observe, and watch as judgment transforms into investigation right before your eyes. Come back and tell us what shifted. Did they spend more time looking before rejecting? Did they make observations instead of immediate declarations? Did something soften in the dynamic between you? Because when you remove the pressure to immediately like foods and replace it with invitation to explore them, everything changes. Mealtimes become collaborative investigations rather than negotiations. Your child develops confidence in their ability to handle new experiences, and you both discover that there's a whole world of flavors waiting to be explored together. That's the French difference. That's the power of descriptive language. And that's how one word, interesting, transforms picky eaters into food explorers. Your child isn't naturally picky. They're naturally curious. The question is whether your words around food will nurture that curiosity or accidentally destroy it. The French have been raising food explorers for generations. Now you know their secret too.